The Republic of China, commonly known as Taiwan, has full diplomatic relations with 14 out of 193 United Nations member states, as well as the Holy See. Historically, the ROC has required its diplomatic allies to recognize it as the sole legitimate government of China. But since the 1990s, its policy has changed into actively seeking dual recognition with the PRC. In addition to these relations, the ROC also maintains unofficial relations with 57 UN member states via its representative offices and consulates. The ROC government participated in the 1943 Moscow Conference, the Dumbarton Oaks Conference, and the United Nations Conference on International Organization and was a charter member of the United Nations after participating in the alliance that won World War II. In 1949, the nationalists lost the Chinese Civil War in mainland China and retreated to Taiwan, Penghu, Kinmen and Matsu, forming a rump state. Despite the major loss of territory, the ROC continued to be recognized as the legitimate government of China by the UN and by many non-communist states. American foreign policy 1950 to 1971 called for full recognition and support of the government of China in Taiwan. As the Korean War broke out, Taiwan was not allowed to send military support to South Korea. However, the Truman administration resumed economic and military aid to the ROC on Taiwan and neutralized the Taiwan Strait by United States 7th Fleet to stop a communist invasion as well as a potential ROC's counter-invasion of the mainland. In 1954, a US-Taiwan military alliance was signed as a result of the American Cold War strategy in the Far East, in the determination not to allow Chiang Kai-shek's forces on Taiwan to attack China, thereby setting off another even larger war between the United States and China. The American military presence in Taiwan consisted of the Military Assistance Advisory Group and the United States Taiwan Defense Command. Other notable units included the 327th Air Division. Until the US formally recognized the People's Republic of China in 1979, Washington provided the ROC with financial grants based on the Foreign Assistance Act, Mutual Security Act and Act for International Development enacted by the U.S. Congress. A separate Sino-American Mutual Defense Treaty was signed between the two governments of U.S. and ROC in 1954 and lasted until 1979. The U.S. State Department's official position in 1959 was, in 1971, the UN expelled the ROC and transferred China's seat to the People's Republic of China. In addition to the attemp's recognition of the ROC by a majority of countries before UN Resolution 2758, the ROC lost its membership in all the intergovernmental organizations related to the UN. As the UN and related organizations like the International Court of Justice are the most common venues for effective execution of international law and serve as the international community for sovereign states, a majority of the countries aligned with the West in the Cold War terminated diplomatic relations with the ROC and opened diplomatic relations with the PRC. The United Nations Charter's Articles 23 and 110, in its Chapter 2, explicitly refer to the ROC, but the seat of China is currently occupied by the PRC. The ROC continues to maintain de facto relations, including with most of the non-governmental organizations at the United Nations. In addition, with the concern from UNESCO, the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations was signed and ratified by the ROC on the 18th of April 1961 and the 19th of December 1969, including optional protocol concerning the compulsory settlement of disputes. It is entitled by the founding of the United Nations as the cornerstone of modern-day diplomacy. Since the Vienna Congress, Article 35 of 1969 Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties also applies to the ROC since 1971. Due to the ROC's insecurity and intolerance in the 1970s and 1980s after it was expelled by the UN, as well as American influence, the ROC gradually democratized and adopted universal suffrage, ending under the one-party leadership of President Chiang Ching-kuo by lifting 38 years of martial Law on the Communist Rebellion on mainland China and establishing the new self-identity of Republic of China on Taiwan in the international community. Enacting two China's states in the world. In practice, UN resolution is binding to the internal structure of United Nations. And Taipei needs Article 33 of the UN Charter for International Intervention in the Pacific region. Whereas claiming Resolution 2758 as non-binding on the international law regarding the international status of Republic of China on Taiwan, but seeking opportunities to join UN specialized agencies to become permanent observer under the auspices of UN Resolution 396, which duly recommended the questions of debate on Chinese representation in the United Nations. The first direct presidential election was held in 1996 and the incumbent President Lee Teng-hui was elected. As of 4 May 2,